Good Thursday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. 4 o'clock, that means it's time for Sports for CLE. Plenty of Browns to talk about. NFL draft just 1 week away. Let's get right to our Browns talk. Ian Rappaport from NFL Now on NFL Network reporting the decision for Jarvis Landry between which team he's going to go to, down to the Saints as well as the Cleveland Browns. Landry meeting with the Saints. Here is what is going on there and when he expects Jarvis Landry to sign.
Yeah, and I think this makes a lot of sense. You know, right when it became clear that Jarvis Landry was going to be available, the Saints popped up as a potential destination. They got some studs at receiver. Michael Thomas, pretty good football player, assuming he's healthy, which it sounds like he is. But they do need a slot receiver. They do have some money for it, and this would, of course, fill in a big-time hole before the draft. The only issue here to me, we'll see what happens at the end of the day, but it seems to me more like research and due diligence for the Saints as opposed to something imminent. Could happen, never say never. Anytime a player is on a visit is always worth monitoring, but Landry is likely going to decide between the Saints and the Cleveland Browns. I'm not so sure this happens until after the draft, or really maybe right before. So it doesn't seem like anything's imminent today, but obviously an important and big visit for Jarvis Landry nonetheless.
With that, let's welcome in Quincy Carrier. Quincy, when you hear that Jarvis Landry meeting with the Saints, that's really the first team other than the Browns he's been tied to.
Yeah, it's kind of like an option of going home because Jarvis Landry from that Louisiana area. So it would be interesting, I think, clearly if he wants to win now, which is probably the goal for Jarvis. I mean, let's be honest, his career, while he has been a phenomenal player throughout of it, he has not seen the heights of success that he has wanted to see throughout his career, right? He's been to, I think, 2 playoff games in his entire career, played well in both of them, but still maybe 3. I think he went to 1 with the Dolphins. But again, not the amount of high-level games that he probably wants to be in. Cleveland would be his best bet. Not saying that the Saints aren't a playoff contender over there. We don't know who's going to emerge as playoff contenders in the NFC just because there's no quarterbacks really in that conference, so anything can happen. But it would make a lot of sense for a reunion there, especially if it's mutual on both sides. Again, Jarvis never really wanted to leave Cleveland in the first place. He just wanted to feel like he was getting market value there. Now that he's been able to hit the market, he's seen what his value is. It might make him more susceptible to returning to a number closer to what Andrew Berry and company were originally offering him to restructure. Because again, this is not a guy that wanted to move on. This is not a team that wanted to move on. Economics kind of forced their hand in this situation. Yeah,
the other thing is now you're talking, is it Deshaun Watson you want throwing you the football or Jameis Winston? And I think we both know which of those two Jarvis Landry would rather have as his quarterback. Some more wide receiver news. Former Raiders wide receiver, Eagles wide receiver, fill-in-the-blank wide receiver, veteran Deshaun Jackson has identified 3 teams he'd like to play for, and the Browns were one of them. Browns, Chiefs, and Packers. And again, all 3 of those looking for wide receivers. So Jackson is an intriguing guy, a deep threat, which you could use to stretch the field. Probably not an expensive wide receiver either.
Yeah, I think the Browns are really invested in Anthony Schwartz, giving him a chance to be that option. And then if he can't, they'll go with Jakeem Grant. I think at this point of what Deshaun Jackson is going to provide, they feel like they have 2 answers in that, right? Jakeem Grant can be a deep threat guy, can be a 4-3 guy. And then clearly Anthony Schwartz was drafted to be that guy. I think they're going to give them those opportunities. And what gives me that ideal is the outright lack of interest in a guy like Will Fuller, right? Like they weren't really that interested in bringing him in. And then you look at other just signifiers, right, that they weren't really trying to bring in a burner. It tells me that they're pretty happy with Jakeem Grant and they're pretty happy with Anthony Schwartz being those 2, I want to say, number 1 receivers, because they're not. Cooper's going to be number 1 receiver on this team this year, but they're going to be in that X role where they're going to go over the top on deep post a lot.
Yeah, and the other thing about Grant's going to be the return guy that the Browns have been looking for a while. All right, we're still on the topic of wide receivers. Time to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about a veteran who has said he wants to be traded.
Hello there. Browns fan coming from all the way from Los Angeles here. Just a quick question. I'm sure you guys have already heard the news today or earlier today about Deebo Samuel requesting a trade from the 49ers. That's huge news, first of all. But second of all, yeah, just with that being the case, do you think that it would be a real, legitimate possibility if Deebo Samuel were to come here to Cleveland and join our new and growing wide receiver room to join Amari Cooper and Anthony Schwartz and Jakeem Grant and all those other guys to make it a pretty formidable wide receiver room? Just curious about your thoughts on that, if you think that's a real possibility or not. And yeah, thank you so much.
All right, before we answer that, let's take a look at odds on this. So this is from bookies.com, the odds of where Deebo Samuel ends up week 1 of the season. They say the team that he's with is the favorite, the San Francisco 49ers. Second favorites, Browns and the Colts, ahead of the Cowboys, Panthers, Bears, rest of the field. And it's pretty close between the 49ers and the Browns and the Colts. I think it would be awfully tough to put together a package that's going to pry Deebo Samuel away from the 49ers. I'm all for it if you can find a way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, sure, why not? Just be the ultimate Swiss Army knife, right? If you just add Deebo Samuel to a running attack that has Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, and then a wide receiving attack that could have Jarvis Landry potentially and Amari Cooper. I mean, come on, right? Like, yeah, who would say no to that? But ultimately, yeah, it probably makes the most sense for him to return to San Francisco, and this is a mutual thing. Look, and the reason he's linked to Cleveland is because he needs a specific type of offense and a specific type of offensive mind to be able to get the most out of him, right? He's not like a DeAndre Hopkins, right, where you can put D-Hop at the X on all 32 teams, and you're going to get D-Hop production, right? Same thing with like Stephon Diggs or guys like that. Deebo's a little bit of a different case where you have to – it's kind of like what we all kind of thought if Percy Harvin would have stayed healthy, what you could do with Percy Harvin, which is he can play the Percy Harvin role. Now that's evolved into the Deebo Samuel role. It's a little bit different than Percy. Percy did more kickoff returns and more finesse stuff. Deebo does some of that more grindy work there. But it's similar in application, right? You just need somebody to be that Swiss Army knife. Yeah, I would find it hard for him to come to Cleveland. I don't know what kind of package it would take, but I don't doubt anything. I mean, look what Andrew Berry has already locked down on this roster, and you tell me that something isn't possible. I didn't think they were going to be able to lock down the entire core before the start of this season. They've already done that, and they've traded for a different quarterback.
I'm with you.
Nothing's out of question.
And that's probably one of the reasons the Browns are one of the favorites is Vegas is looking at it going, Andrew Berry will find a way to do that if anybody can. It's interesting, though. Samuel wants to be traded because he doesn't want to be that running back solution, wants to be strictly a wide receiver. So that's something to keep in mind. And it wasn't a money thing with the 49ers. They were willing to extend him. So we'll monitor that. Quincy, Carrier, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we talk a little bit about Kareem Hunt, what to expect from him. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms.
Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Quincy, I think one of the underrated things that happened last year that derailed the Browns offense was the injury to Kareem Hunt. They missed him quite a bit, especially in the red zone. When you look at this season, what do you expect from Kareem Hunt?
Yeah, I really do expect a lot out of Kareem Hunt this year, just because he's going to be in a situation where he's able to get the most out of himself, just because he's not going to be stuck with a lot of 8-man boxes. He's going to be able to operate in some 6-man boxes. Deshaun Watson also being the quarterback there is going to help him tremendously in the run game as a receiving threat, because, one of the things about Baker, had issues finding the flat, right? So when it came to those checkdowns, we missed on a lot of opportunities where Kareem Hunt could have gotten some yardage there, just because he couldn't be found, or he wasn't in the right progressions for Baker to find him, right? Now you have a quarterback who has a wider vision cone out there, if you're old school Madden head like me, who can see the whole field and see those kind of things. So you're going to get increased efficiency from Kareem Hunt. You're going to get some increased, I think, efficiency in his yards per this year as a running back, just because on second and third down, when he's asked to be out there a lot, there's going to be lighter packages out there from a defensive perspective, right? Teams are going to be in nickel and dime more often against the Cleveland Browns because they're going to be worried about the passing attack. And you put Kareem Hunt against there and you have him run the football. And I know that this seems like a hot take to people who just kind of look at these guys and don't really watch them play football a lot. But I understand if you think Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb is the best 1-yard option on the team because he's so big and strong. But the reality of it is, if you need a yard, Kareem Hunt's your guy, because he just goes straight into wherever he has to go, and he puts licks on there. I would love to ask people in the NFL, linebackers especially, who of the two do you feel like is more painful to tackle? I think they would tell me it's Kareem Hunt, because when he hits, man, he hits. Nick Chubb, he hits hard, no doubt, when you tackle him. Like, I'm not saying Nick Chubb's easy to tackle by any stretch of the imagination. But Kareem Hunt, he lays them body blows down there, and that really wears out a defense. And when you have less guys there to take that blow, he's going to break some of those tackles and break off some 20, 30-yard runs here on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, he will go full speed into a brick wall, I believe. I firmly believe that about Kareem Hunt. He thinks he can run over a brick wall.
3 yards.
Yeah, he thinks he can run through a brick wall. All right, we're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about your opinion about the kind of year Kareem Hunt is going to have.
Dave, please tell Quincy I totally agree with him that Kareem Hunt will have a great year. I believe Kareem will finally get the dump passes to use that aspect of the game that was missing last year. And Dave, I feel like you, Kareem and Nick Chubb should be in at the same time. They both give totally different aspects of the running game. Both are great backs, and we're lucky to have them. So Stefanski, use them to the extreme. And Kareem should be the next player to get a wage extension.
All right, that's Ron Bauer. Ron, as always, we appreciate it. Quincy, think about this. We've already said what Deshaun Watson brings to the table. Hunt and Chubb and Deshaun Watson, Cooper out wide, and heck, you could put me in the slot, and I think we're going to threaten the defense pretty significantly.
It's a pretty formidable offense, right? It's amazing. You just changed a couple of names, and all of a sudden one of the worst offenses in the NFL flips to something of one of the most high potential offenses in the NFL. By the way, it's nice to agree with the voicemail caller. I think I've been on here a couple of times, disagreed here. It's nice to agree with the man. But yeah, I think Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, they have tremendous potential there. And if you look at this Browns offense, I hesitate to say potential, because a lot of these guys are proven, like, successful players in it. We're not talking about like a crop of promising rookies and a bunch of first-round picks. We're talking about actual Pro Bowlers in Amari Cooper, in Nick Chubb, in Kareem Hunt, in Deshaun Watson, I already said Amari Cooper, potentially Jarvis Landry, right? Like, and the offensive line, of course. So, yeah, the potential is through the roof for this team offensively, and that says a lot because I don't even think their strength this year is going to be their offense. I think their strength is going to be their defense, and that's more of a comment to how good I think this defense can be this year than any limitation I see in the offense. I think they're going to be tremendous on both sides of the football.
Yeah, and while we're on the subject of the defense, they lock up Denzel Ward, and not only do they lock him up, but Andrew Berry does it in a way that they take money off of the cap this season as they extend him for $100.5 million, and he's now under contract for 6 more years. What about that contract extension and the way they work that out?
Oh yeah, well they did the smart thing, right? Because if you wanted to keep Denzel Ward, and you know he's going into his 5th-year option, you need to get that deal done right now, right? Because you want to lower that cap number. This is part of the reason, and I know people chuckle because I think Kyler Murray put it in his hostage letter with the Arizona Cardinals or whatever that was that he released publicly on his Twitter, that he wanted to help them lower their cap number. I was like, how are you going to get more money and lower the cap? This is how, right? And I try to tell people this all the time because so often NFL fans kind of get wrapped up into the cap logistics. And I warn people, getting wrapped up in the cap logistics is like trying to figure out advanced calculus when you barely know the basic rules of algebra. Like, you have no idea how any of this works. Nobody does. The people in the league barely know how it works. So, like, us trying to, decide what's a good cap move or not right now, it's virtually pointless because we have no idea what the rubric is for that. What we do know is that, hey, they're going to lower the cap number this year. And let's be honest, this is an NFL contract. After 3 years, it's probably going to get renegotiated, right? It's probably going to get restructured. Same thing with Deshaun Watson's deal. His deal is going to be restructured time and time again if he is the franchise quarterback at the Cleveland Browns. So good move right now. Long term, I see a lot of people freaking out about this long term. I would just say, that contract's going to change by the year of that contract you're worried about it. I promise you it's going to get changed by then, right? It never gets to that point in the NFL, right? What happened with Jarvis Landry? He got to that point, they released him. Now they're going to renegotiate a deal. We're trying to renegotiate a deal with him. Same thing with Odell Beckham. It never gets to that point where the money becomes a real problem because most teams negotiate, kick that down the road, and then, we end up talking about, what's that going to be in 5 years? It never gets to 5 years. It always renegotiates with them too.
The other thing is the NFL has the money printing press running because there's going to be, that cap's going to keep going up and up and up and up and up. There is no end to the evaluation upward of the NFL salary cap because they're just going to keep getting different streams of money that'll come in.
Could you imagine if the NFL was like the NBA? They had luxury tax, so you could go over the cap if you're just willing to pay. The Browns would have everybody on their roster. I was talking about this on Twitter. I don't know what it's like to cheer for a team that can't keep his players. All I hear is about all of these teams. Oh, A.J. Brown don't want to stay with the Titans no more because they won't pay him. Deebo Samuel, he's having issues with this team. How many players have had contract issues this year? Yet the Browns is re-signing everybody, giving out guaranteed money. It must be difficult out there to cheer for a team that don't want to keep their best players. I don't know what that feels like. It's been a while. It's been a while since I know what that feels like.
Tell you what else. It means Andrew Berry understands the salary cap, and that front office understands it pretty well because they're moving it down the road, and they know where they're going to move it next. All right. One of the things that we had yesterday, Denzel Ward met with the media, talked about the contract extension, also talked about a guy he really wants back and what this defense can look like in year 3 under Joe Woods.
Definitely speaking with him recently, I would like to see Clowney back. I feel like he was a big key factor for us on the defense. Him and Miles, I feel we're a great tandem. But so hopefully we could get that done. Like I said, whoever AB and those guys bring in, I'm sure are going to be able to get the job done. But Clowney was definitely a great asset for the team. Like I said, it's going to be special just having the same group of coaches back, the same group of DBs back, and just building that camaraderie, how each other play. And with Joe Woods and his defense, getting a better understanding. I feel that plays a big factor. Just having a comfort level of knowing what to do, knowing the calls, and knowing what new calls he's going to put in and knowing how he likes to coach and play. So, that's huge to have all these guys back.
And Quincy, you alluded to it. The defense is young. That's back half that in a passing league is deep. And I'm with you. I think it could be really, really good on the defensive side of the ball for the Browns this year.
People forget this is one of the best defenses in the NFL last year. If you look at any advanced number or any advanced metric, both in coverage, tackling, run defense, like all of the things you want a defense to be good at. This defense was excellent at last year. Pass rushing, I mean, like that goes without saying. So they know defensively what they have there. I mean, if you have Myles Garrett, if you have Clowney and just a little bit of depth there on the defensive line, you are going to be fine because you have athletes like JOK that you put at linebacker. And then that secondary is so deep with the Cleveland Browns that you don't have to worry about much else, and you can be versatile and move things around and be scheme verse. And this ultimately, they know how good they were last year, right? The defense knows that they weren't the problem last year, that they kept this team in games they had no business being in. Right, they were coming back from 3 turnover games from the offense, right, or games like the Lions where there were turnovers and no ball movement, or games like Minnesota where there were turnovers, no ball movement, nothing, not a single thing happening on the offensive side of the ball. I know as we get further away from last season, it becomes easier to sugarcoat how bad the offense was last season, but I am not in the business of sugarcoating that. The offense was horrendous last year. Like one of the worst, it was excruciating to watch, most certainly. And when your offense is that bad, and you still find a way, they won 8 games last year, just because the defense was excellent for like most of those wins, that tells you how far they feel like they could go when the offense all of a sudden turns from not just a liability or not just something that you can live with, but at the helm of a top 5 quarterback or top 7 quarterback, wherever you see Deshaun Watson at, right, in the top 10. That energizes folks, right? So the Denzel Ward is looking at this like, we need to bring Clowney back and run this defense back, because if we get that defense playing at that level like we did last year, and then that offense plays this top 10 offensive football, they don't even need to be one of the best offenses in football. They just need to be good. If they're good, you got to be thinking, if you're Denzel Ward, if you're one of the players on the Browns, it's not me saying this, but if you're one of the players around, you got to be thinking you can win the Super Bowl with that kind of roster, right? And if he doesn't think that, then why are you here, right? So obviously he wants Clowney back. I want Clowney back. And I think Andrew Berry and company want Clowney back, and I think ultimately Clowney wants to come back. Like, I think this is just kind of a logistical thing where we're waiting on. Everybody wants to come back. Everybody knows that this is probably their best option right now. Like, I would be surprised if Clowney signed somewhere else, but I will caveat that by saying I've been surprised plenty of times.
Yeah, the only way that I think Clowney and Landry sign somewhere else is if somebody drops a whole lot of money in front of them, and I don't blame them for chasing the money. That's what you do as a professional. Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take another time out. Other side of the break, we take a look at some trade options, and we'll also hear from Jacoby Brissett. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Quincy Carrier and I continue talking Browns. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about a trade target for the defensive line.
Hi, guys. Would a Baker Mayfield for Grady Jarrett trade be feasible? Trade one messy contract for another, but at least they'd have the messy contract at a position of need. Tell me what you think, please. Thank you.
As always, we appreciate all the voicemails. And Quincy, I get that line of thinking. The Falcons did sign Marcus Mariota, but again, if you can trade a veteran at a position of need for Baker Mayfield. Right now, Andrew Berry hasn't traded Baker Mayfield because Baker Mayfield's an asset. He hasn't gotten something for him that he values in terms of building the roster.
Yeah, I think there's also a question of if anybody wants him at the number that the Browns are offering to let him go at, right? And that's also something of interest here. Also, people are going to wait and see with this quarterback class, who they get. This is a weird quarterback class, right? The different GMs are going to fall in love with different guys here. So maybe somebody's like dead set on their quarterback solution being Carson Strong in the 3rd round. If they don't get that, then all of a sudden they're going to be in the market for Baker Mayfield. I would love a trade for Baker Mayfield that nets you anything. I'm at the point with Baker Mayfield and the lack of interest in him that it's kind of like trying to trade Kevin Love, right? Remember when the Cavs tried to trade Kevin Love a couple years ago? Nobody wanted to take on that contract. It kind of gets to the point to where you have to look at this from other teams' perspective that Baker Mayfield is not necessarily seen as an asset. And once you see it from that perspective, you start to see why it's so difficult to trade him.
Fair enough. All right. I know you did this on your show earlier in the week. Last-minute defensive free agents to watch that you think would fit well with the Browns.
Oh, yeah. Like there are a couple of interesting ones, right? Justin Houston, I think where there is another one. He played for the Chiefs. He was also on the Steelers for last year. I'm blanking on his name. But, some edge rushers that could – Melvin Ingram, yeah. Yep. Melvin Ingram was also there. Like, there are a lot of guys there who would be interesting for the Cleveland Browns if they can't get to terms with Jadeveon Clowney. This is why the Jadeveon Clowney thing's taking forever, because there are a bunch of other guys kind of clogging up the same market as he is in. So that's something to watch for them, right? Akeem Hicks is always somebody to watch just because they need a veteran there at defensive tackle. Right now, they don't have as many starting level defensive tackles as you would like to have on a team that has championship aspirations. So a lot of these moves are focused on the defensive side of the ball just because I feel like they have some patchwork that they could do there and that they could solve with some one-year deals.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Jacoby Brissett. Browns brought him in to be the backup to Deshaun Watson. May have to play if there's any type of suspension. And again, I know you're going to have this on your show a little bit later. Give us a little preview. I know you broke him down. What did you see with Jacoby Brissett? What do you think the Browns liked about him, and what do you see when you study him?
I like Jacoby Brissett just because he has good tool set, right? Nice arm strength. People think he's run first, and this is as confusing to me as like when people thought he was like Jameis Winston was run first for whatever reason. Right? I'm like, he's not really run first. He's guy who can run if you ask him to run. He's not guy who's going to take an RPO, right? Mitchell Trubisky is somebody who would take an RPO and do well with it because he has that kind of athletic and twitchy ability. Jacoby Brissett, he's quick. He's not fast in the long sense. He can scramble. He's big enough to where people don't really want to tackle him. And what I like about him is his ability to throw on the move, right? I think that's going to be something that they're going to utilize. If Jacoby Brissett starts a game for the Cleveland Browns, he's probably only going to throw the ball about 15 to 20 times, and about 10 of those 20 throws are probably going to be play action boots, right? One side or the other. So I think that's how they use him. He fits in the offense, has a stronger arm, so you don't have some of the limitation issues that you had with the Case Keenum. Can move if he needs to move, and has those things going for him. Like, he's not a guy you're going to want to throw the ball 50 times with. He's not a guy you're going to want to go into empty with a ton. But if you put him in specific situations, I do think he can deliver for you. One thing also I noticed, if you go back and watch some of his games, he was actually a pretty decent clutch option there at the quarterback position. So, he had those big moments where the game was on the line, it was on his back, and he delivered in those small moments. Again, not going to break the stat sheet or anything like that, but a serviceable guy that can do maybe 5 things really good at the quarterback position, and sometimes that's all you need from the quarterback position at a backup sense, because you can get away with doing 5 things really good for like 4 or 5 weeks in the NFL.
All right, so the Browns clearly signed him because he has been a backup and has won. Brissett talked about that experience as well as his strengths as a quarterback.
I think it's just me believing in myself. And trusting what got me to the point that at whichever level I was at, and really just falling back on that and trusting the hard work that I put in, and going back to, what do I know about football, and trusting that, and going out there and just playing football and doing what I've done since I was a little kid.
What are your strengths as a quarterback, Jacoby?
Tough. Stand in the pocket, make all the throws. It's hard for me to scout myself and tell it right now. Then everybody's gonna know what to do. But yeah, I think I do all the things that the job requires me to do.
And Quincy, to your point, didn't say, I can beat you with my legs. I'm a dual threat. He said, I'm tough and I stay in the pocket.
Yeah. He's really somebody whose ability, his mobility is more, he can throw on the run, right? Like he's not necessarily, you're going to keep a QB spy in for Jacoby Brissett, but he can do some things well. And what he does well, I think Kevin Stefanski could do a really good job taking advantage of. Also, this is why it helps having a good offensive line, having a good running back. If Jacoby Brissett has to play, you can get away with only throwing the ball 20 times. Why? Because you can run the ball with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt or Dearness Johnson, right? If they're able to keep him, if he doesn't sign an offer sheet by the end of this week. So, you have options galore there on the offensive side of the ball. And again, in the case, if there is a Watson suspension, which I think the if on that is growing as each day goes by, you have options to get away with stuff for about 6 weeks, right? If it goes longer than that, hey, fingers crossed, we're going to hold on tight. But 6 weeks, I think you could withstand anything.
I'm with you. Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we will take a look at the draft. A thought of who the Browns should target at 44, their first pick in the draft. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Round one of the NFL draft just a week away now, next Thursday. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about what the Browns should do with their second round pick, number 44.
Hey, this is Jerry again. Looking at some mock drafts, I've got Kareem Hunt going to the Browns at number 44. Is that a good pick? Thanks.
All right, so Kareem Hunt, defensive tackle. Quincy, I like him. I'm pretty sure you like him too. Tell me your thoughts about Kareem Hunt and what you like about him.
Is that a good pick, Kareem Hunt at 44? You do backflips. You do backflips and cartwheels if you get Kareem Hunt at 44. Are you kidding me? Yeah, yes. Kareem Hunt at 44, absolute steal. You talk about a guy who has length. He has 35-inch arms. You talk about a guy who has strength. He's strong. Go watch the tape. If you talk about a guy who plays physical, yeah, he's really physical. You want a quick guy? He has a 1.68, 10-yard split. You want a long speed, fast guy for whatever reason at defensive tackle position? He ran a 4.8 40 at 300 pounds. This is a guy who is almost built in the image of what Andrew Berry has been trying to find at defensive tackle for like 2 years now, right? Like if this is the fully realized version of what they were trying to get with Jordan Elliott. So yeah, Kareem Hunt at 44, you do backflips and you turn that card in immediately. If it were me, I would absolutely not hesitate because I have real questions on if he'll be available at 44, right? I think he's a first-round prospect. I've gone on record as saying that at the end of the day, in like 3 years, we're probably going to say Kareem Hunt is one of the best 15 players in this draft. So I would be ecstatic, nonetheless, get him at 44.
Yeah, I like the attitude, too. He thinks he's the best guy on the field, and he wants to be coached hard, and I think that's something that resonates with some guys at the Combine where we heard that. All right. Now, that would be the Browns not taking a wide receiver at 44. This is kind of interesting. So Marcus Mosher tweets this out. The odds of finding a quality starting wide receiver past pick number 75, that would be all the Browns' other picks other than 44, is around 5%. Odds of finding a Pro Bowl wide receiver after 75, 2.6. Odds of finding an All-Pro, 0.7. We know the Browns need to add to that wide receiver room. You still going, when you look at that, the odds aren't for you getting a really good wide receiver after 44. You still going defensive line with your 44?
Oh, with all due respect to those odds, I'm throwing them out the table this year. This is not a normal wide receiver draft class. Yeah, every other year where John Mechie's probably a first-round pick, those odds probably do hold up, right? But after this year, no, I don't. There's going to be somebody who's going to be a decent starter in the NFL that gets picked after pick 75. There's probably going to be a handful of them. This is a really deep wide receiving class. You get a guy at 75. You get somebody at 99 that you like. And at the end of the day, how many wide receivers do the Browns really need to bring in if they've got Jarvis Landry? They already have 2 young guys in Peoples-Jones and Schwartz, and they already have Cooper under contract for the next few years. So the need at wide receiver, I don't think is as dire as a lot of people want to make it seem, especially when you already brought back David Njoku on the franchise tag. And we're paying somebody $50 million a year. Well, after this year, we're going to pay him $50 million a year to help mitigate that wide receiving problem by just being accurate and on time, which is something that the other quarterback did not do.
Yeah, I'm with you. So Deshaun Watson will make the wide receiving room better. Here's an interesting mock draft. Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports. We'll look at a couple of the picks that he has. He has the Browns taking George Pickens, wide receiver from Georgia, at 44. And he does have trades involved in this one. He has them trading 78 and 99 to get to 56. And with that pick, taking Travis Jones, another defensive tackle. And again, if Travis Jones is there, I'm all for that. That's another defensive lineman I like. Just your thoughts on potentially getting Pickens and Jones and giving up both of your thirds to get back into the second.
Yeah, if the Browns do go wide receiver at 44, they go anything other than D tackle at 44, I do think they do need to trade up if they want to have any solution for the defensive tackle problem. Because by the time you get to 75 and 99 in this draft, it's not going to look pretty for defensive tackle. At 44, it looks pretty good. Maybe at 50, it looks good. 60, I think you're pushing it. But after 60, it don't look good. So, yeah, I think they would, if they do go a different position, there 44, a trade up would make a lot of sense.
All right, before we let you go, one more voicemail. Voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about a trade question. If we think Andrew Berry would do this.
Hey, you guys, I love the show. I have a question, and it's more like wishful thinking. If Treylon Burks, the wide receiver from Arkansas, drops in the first round, and I have a feeling that Andrew Berry really likes this guy, because I really like him too, do you think that he'll try to trade up and get him? Just a question, just wishful thinking. Thank you for taking my question.
All right, appreciate the voicemails as all. Quincy, I think he likes him. I don't know how you get back into the first round with what you got. You don't have first-round picks for the next 3 years. I don't know how you get back into the first round from 44.
Yeah, and it's not like they have no capital to expend. Because remember, you can only trade up to the next 3 years of picks, right? After 3 years, those picks that exist after that don't really exist. They're not tradable assets. So you really, your hands are tied to get back in the first round. You could give up your second round pick next year, but that's not a way you want to live. So I just think it's difficult for the Browns to get back into the first round. Maybe if something happens to where he slides into the second round, it might be possible. I still think it would be hard to happen. The Browns aren't really in the position to trade because they don't really have anybody they want to trade on their roster other than Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's not netting you a first round pick. So yeah, maybe moving up in the second round, you might be able to pair Baker up with somebody and then make it intriguing enough with some third and fourth round picks. But first round, absolutely going to be a feat that they can't afford. This is see, if it's about money, they can afford it. But they're kind of tapped out on other things, right?
Yep. Jimmy Haslam got plenty of that money that he's willing to spend on this football team, but trade capital is a finite thing. Yeah, I got you. Quincy Carrier, as always, great stuff, man. Again, you can watch Quincy's show on YouTube as well. Quincy Carrier, Google it, you'll find him. Thanks very much, Quincy. Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you having me on.
All right, Quincy Carrier. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll continue talking Browns. Mac Robinson from 92.3 Fan will join us. We'll talk about a crazy three-way trade idea that one of our callers has. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Time to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one, a little bit of a crazy three-way trade proposal.
Yo, hi Dave. Hi guys at Sports4CLE. Guitar Chic here, first-time caller, and I'm going to bring up the dreaded Baker Mayfield question. I had a thought, and now I don't know anything about draft picks or contract. This is strictly about players. What if, as a fun trade scenario, Baker goes to Arizona, Murray goes to 49ers, and then you bring over Deebo Samuel back to Cleveland? Yeah, everybody gets something good. I think that would be great. Let's get Deebo in here. But, hey, it was just a fun thought. Like I said, I don't know anything about putting contracts in there or draft picks. This is just about players. And it was just a fun trade scenario. Thanks. Y'all have a great night. Keep a great show going. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right, as always, we appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. Mac, it may take something crazy like that to get some value for Baker Mayfield. I don't think there's any way they can swing that. You know, they have Trey Lance in 49er land. But that might be some form or fashion. Don't put anything past our front office here.
Yeah, I would say this. When it comes to creativity, I'm not putting it past Andrew Berry, and a trade like that I would have expected to happen on April 20th. But, you know, when it comes down to, you know, the Baker Mayfield move, I do think that something is going to have to be done that needs to be a little bit creative. You know, I know that in that scenario, the addition of Deebo Samuel, I don't think that that's going to be realistic to get to actually happen. But at the same time, you know, when it comes to Baker, I think it is going to take some creativity, you know, not necessarily in terms of, you know, not just a draft capital, but I also think that the Browns are going to have to eat some of that money as well. But when it comes to the Deebo Samuel side of it as well, you know, I just don't think that for the Browns that they're going to be able to kind of bring that kind of a contract in on top of it. And plus, too, you know, Deebo, he wants to be utilized as more of strictly a receiver. So I think that for him, you know, coming into an offense in Cleveland where, again, you have Nick Chubb, you have Kareem Hunt in the backfield, you already have Amari Cooper, you already have David Njoku, how much is there gonna be to go around when it comes to Deebo Samuel at that point as well? But again, I think that Baker ending up in Arizona is interesting, but again, I just don't see that kind of a deal as feasible in my mind.
No, but it's fun to talk about. I get you, and I think she actually knew that too. All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about a question about some wide receivers that might be available.
Hi, this is Jerry. Love your show. Hey, are these disgruntled wide receivers in the league too expensive for anybody to try to trade for? Thank you. Bye.
Now, Mac, there are teams that could probably have the draft capital and the cap space. Unfortunately, the Browns don't have much draft capital. That if you're trading an established veteran wide receiver, it usually means that you're looking for some younger guys at lesser value.
Yeah, this isn't a situation where Bill O'Brien's in charge of a team like he was when DeAndre Hopkins got traded. But, looking at it, the Browns are pretty much tapped out when it comes to a lot of their draft capital, and especially, too, after paying guys like Denzel Ward, paying Myles Garrett. You've already paid Deshaun Watson as well as others. I think that at this point, I would say this. I think that the Browns are pretty much tapped out of that market. But I do think it's going to be an interesting storyline to kind of follow along as the draft goes on, because you do have guys like A.J. Brown who are disgruntled at this point. Terry McLaurin with Washington still needs to get paid. And then you also, obviously, like we mentioned, have Deebo Samuel that's kind of up in the air right now. I don't know if San Francisco is actually going to trade him or not. They might kind of call his bluff a little bit. But at the same time, I do think that it's going to be interesting to follow along. I just don't see the Browns in that race when it comes to those disgruntled receivers.
Yeah, I think, and Quincy had said this a little bit earlier. When they got Deshaun Watson, they feel like they upgraded the wide receiver room that they have. There's still going to be an addition or two via the draft. It might be Jarvis Landry. I still wouldn't rule out Will Fuller, but I don't think it'll be one of those high profile guys that wants a new deal, if you will. Along the same lines of trades that could happen, and these are trades that could actually shake up the draft coming up that starts next Thursday. This is from Bleacher Report. They say Panthers get Baker Mayfield, Browns get the 137th pick and a 2023 third-round pick. I got to be honest. I think Andrew Berry turns in the card for that trade immediately.
Yeah, Dave, looking at this kind of a deal, I think that it's one that, the Panthers are kind of forced into a corner because, a lot of times when you're talking about giving up draft capital for a player, you talk about teams that are in desperate situations. And, looking at the Carolina Panthers, they tried Sam Darnold. It didn't work. They've tried other options in the past, and Teddy Bridgewater as well as others didn't work there either. Now you're looking at a situation where they are in a win-now mode where they have to start to, tack on those wins. Baker Mayfield, I think, is an established option. I think has the highest upside among the choices that they possibly could go out and get. But the key to remember here is that they picked number 6 overall, and then they don't pick again until 137. So basically, you should know on Thursday night just how desperate the Carolina Panthers are. And so that's why I think that Andrew Berry and company, they might be waiting a little bit until during this draft to possibly see if they can go ahead and pull the trigger on that. Or if instead, again, if the Carolina Panthers say select an offensive tackle, they're at number 6 overall. They're now forced to try to go ahead and trade for one of these quarterback options. Baker is not only the cheapest of those players as well, but if the Browns are willing to eat some more of that money, maybe you can bump up that draft pick next year, maybe make that a little bit easier to become a second-round pick next year instead. So, again, that could get even better, and Andrew Berry could really have all of that leverage after day one when it comes to that kind of a deal with Carolina.
Yeah, and Carolina has some holes and some issues that they need to plug. They also have the salary cap available to absorb potentially his entire contract. So those are some of the reasons that you're going to wait and some of the things you should pay attention for on Thursday of the draft, that first night. Again, if they go anything other than quarterback, I think Baker Mayfield's definitely in play for the Carolina Panthers. Mac Robinson and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, another voicemail, this one about Baker Mayfield. Sports4CLE, will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
We continue talking Browns football with Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. Time to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Baker Mayfield.
Hey, Dave, I'm one of the fans who's ready for the Baker Mayfield conversations to end because we're ready to move on into the Deshaun Watson era. But he is still with the team, so we got to talk about what's going on with him. So this is a two-part Baker Mayfield question for you. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, one, we're hearing the coaches and other folks talk so much about the intelligence and the football IQ that Deshaun Watson, Jacoby Brissett, and of course Josh Dobbs now bring to the football team and to that position group. So is that said another way, like a slight on Baker Mayfield's intelligence? Is that one of the reasons why they were looking to move on from him and to replace him, is because of his lack of football intelligence and football IQ? Secondly, we're hearing that the Pittsburgh Steelers are waiting to pounce on Baker Mayfield if the Cleveland Browns have to flat out release him. Do we really believe that Mike Tomlin wants to bring in Baker Mayfield, given all the baggage and all the drama, and recently throwing some unnamed teammates under the bus in that podcast, that he just did it only for the money? I don't think Mike Tomlin is waiting to snatch up Baker Mayfield. I just don't see him as Pittsburgh Steelers material. Love to hear y'all's thoughts on that. Appreciate it. Go Browns.
All right, as always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mac, and I talk to a lot of people who watch film and break it down. The one thing that I have heard pretty consistently is Baker doesn't process what he sees very quickly, and that sometimes he doesn't believe what he sees. So there's like it's almost like a lack of confidence in what he's seeing. I don't know if that equates to football IQ, but I think that's what the knock against Baker if he had it.
Yeah, and Dave, I would say this. I think that them adding Deshaun Watson, Josh Dobbs, and Jacoby Brissett, I don't think that's a slight to say that, they're intelligent people. I mean, hell, anytime you can get a rocket scientist for your third string QB, I think you take that. But again, keeping in mind, Jacoby Brissett was somebody who, was able to take on the Colts playbook mid-season and really able to take on that starting role in Indianapolis for a little while. So, I think that it's all guys that, again, have that kind of football IQ. Now, again, that's not a knock on Baker. That's just saying that these guys are extremely intelligent when it comes to the game and they're able to pick up quickly. But like you said, that's also a good point as well, because, again, there were times where, Baker had those open options, but just Baker didn't take those. And so, again, I think that's a different part of the game. But, when it comes to the football IQ aspect, I disagree with that. I don't think that's a slight. I think it's kind of a separate entities type of deal. And then when it came to the Steelers part of the question there, Mike Tomlin has dealt with Antonio Brown. Mike Tomlin dealt with Juju Smith-Schuster and all of the other stuff. and Le'Veon Bell on top of all of that. So, I think that Baker Mayfield going onto a podcast or throwing temper tantrums, I think is probably the least of his worries when it comes to Baker, and when it comes to some of those locker room issues that he's run into in the past. Now, with that being said, I think that compared to Mitch Trubisky that he has there, as well as, Mason Rudolph, I think that it's pretty easy to see that at least Baker has the highest upside of the three of those guys. So, I would say this. I think that he would definitely take him in. And again, when it comes to Mike Tomlin, Mike Tomlin has yet to have a losing season in his entire time with Pittsburgh, and I think he'd like to keep it that way. So if he can have the highest upside type of guy, I think that he'll definitely take all of those upgrades.
Well, the other thing is the reason that connect the dots with the Steelers. What Mike Tomlin said is none of the guys they have cost them any draft capital. So that's why they're saying if Baker Mayfield is released, that might be an area that, and they clearly, it's Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph, so you throw Baker Mayfield into that mix if he gets released. I don't think there's any way he's getting released, though.
Agreed.
Let's take a look at the Denzel Ward contract reaction. And there's some guys that, when it was announced, one of the guys, Kerry Coombs, who's now with Cincinnati, was Denzel's position coach at The Ohio State University. And he just said, great character comes from being raised by a great family. That's something Coach Coombs would know, and he's proud of Denzel. He's always carried himself well. And then take a look at Jalen Ramsey, who was the highest paid cornerback before Denzel Ward. And Ramsey tweeting out that definitely deserves it. Welcome to the 100 Club. That is as in $100 million contract. But again, it's very interesting to see people reacting to that record contract for Denzel Ward.
Oh, yeah. And especially, talking about the family, again, always been an upstanding guy, especially, too, in the locker room. And, the thing I love about the Jalen Ramsey part is I'm just waiting for, Ramsey to go to the Rams and say, hey, give me an extra $700,000, please. I want to get back to that number one spot. So just keeping that in mind, it's always interesting to see how that kind of plays out, especially. But it's always great to see somebody like Denzel get paid.
Without question. Before I let you go, what do you think the Browns do at 44? Defensive tackle, wide receiver, defensive end, and do you think they trade up if they see somebody they like higher in the second round?
So I think that they could trade up. I think that's a very realistic possibility. I think that it really depends. My two favorite guys, and look, Dave, I've been a broken record with my guy, at least Treylon Burks. If he's anywhere close, I could see them jumping up, but I don't know. But the three guys that I've kind of identified and kind of circled, or I guess I'll give you four. The four guys I've kind of circled when it comes to the Browns at 44, I've said George Pickens. He's somebody who just turned 21 back in March. So he's somebody who's young enough. He has the frame. I think he makes a lot of sense at receiver. At edge rusher, I look at Drake Jackson out of USC. He's somebody who's 21 years old, is a little bit raw for a pass rusher, but again, has that kind of a mold. They had him drop down about 15 pounds from 270 to 255 to have him play a little bit of a hybrid linebacker role. So I think he can be a traditional D end at about 270 pounds. He's somebody I could see them taking. And then the other one, too, I know you mentioned him a little bit, Perion Winfrey, and also I love Travis Jones out of UConn as well. Both of those guys make a lot of sense age-wise, especially for the interior of the defensive line. I think they make a lot of sense. But all four of those guys I could easily see going at 44. And even if they're sliding a little bit, or if they think that somebody can come up and jump them, it wouldn't shock me if Andrew Berry tries to make a play for one of those guys.
Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan, as always. Appreciate the time and insight. Good stuff, Mac.
Thanks, Dave. Always appreciate the time, my friend.
All right, Mac Robinson. Make sure you catch him, 92.3 The Fan. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest Tim Bielek from The Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com, and Brad Ward from brownswire.com. That's tomorrow, 4 o'clock. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.